Well, good evening, for anyone who's listened to the podcast. I'm here with Rob Bavister again, aka at Bobatron. We are two BBFC, MPAA slash enthusiasts, nerds, boffins, geeks, whatnot. This time we're going to be talking about television as a whole, or more or less sitcoms, but we could put it in the blanket term of television and how that's usually classified or reviewed against other things like live action films or animation, whatnot. So how do you do?
I'm good. I can't complain. Just finished a week's work, so I'm just looking forward to the weekend. How about you?
Same here. Trying to settle down. No, there was a little bit of an emergency where I was living, but thankfully I managed to get you at a good time. Hopefully, I can hope. But
Really bad. What's going on?
So, just in regards to your history with BBFC classification or any other classification really for television programs, what was your experience when you were growing up?
Well, I mean, a lot of the comedies, sitcoms I used to watch growing up as a kid, I mean, a lot of them ended up having, when they came out in VHS, would end up getting a 15 rating. Of course, they were originally made just to go on TV, so they weren't exactly with BBFC in mind, because they don't really have much to do with the BBF with TV. As long as the thing was after 9 p.m., aka the watershed, you could more or less say what you like. Or at least as time went on, they started to strip away more and more of these restrictions. It's quite funny though, because obviously if it's a TV series, the BBFC has to rate each and every individual episode, and then when they put the final rating on it, they have to have a rating of the highest ever rated episode. It's just quite funny because you see like a TV series like Blackadder, which is quite benign, quite tame, quite mild. Not a lot of swearing or anything inappropriate going on, but they're all rated 15. And of course, you actually look at the BBFC website, like each episode, like 5 of the 6 episodes are all given PG ratings, and then just one got a 15. And to be honest, that was because it was back in the 80s when 12 wasn't around, so that's kind of silly when you think about it.
No, in retrospect, I would agree with you.
Yeah, of course, like I say, a benign TV series like that is put in the same category as Bottom or South Park or Family Guy, and it just makes you think, Christ, do ratings even mean anything? And that's a few. Well, that's some of them. There's also the X-Files, which mostly get 12 or 15 ratings, but one episode in all its 9 years of runtime got an 18 rating. So it's just kind of funny when you see that on video or DVD, and it just has a big red circle on it. And of course, if you look up on Netflix and everything, because they have to just go whatever the highest rated episode is, they say X-Files 18 is like, gosh, is it? I don't know even what caused that episode that rating as it comes down to it. So I mean,
well, for me, it sounds like you're referring to that episode. I think it's called Home. It got a bit of controversy in regards to its violence and disturbing imagery. Like some alien family tries to dig graves for a dead baby or something, or there's something related to infanticide. I'm not entirely sure, but
that might have. Was that the incest episode it could have been? I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe this is back in Furman's time. And,
oh yes, completely different standards back then. Well, also, it's quite unusual, when you look at it from a sort of US versus UK perspective, because American TV is heavily censored. You can't say fuck, you can't say shit. Oh, I probably should warn people this is going to contain some strong language and adult themes. You can't say fuck or shit, you can't show breasts. If you are showing violence, you can get away with it, but don't show anything too gory or bloody. Unless it's like on the equivalent of like AMC or HBO or something, where you could probably show like Walking Dead, which is very bloody and gory. That got 15, I think, on season 1, but 18 subsequently.
Well, HBO and Showtime do allow a full array of swear words. I mean, you are right about America's attitude towards the language. It was always quite worrying. Have you seen the episode of South Park called "It Hits a Fan"?
Yes, I am very aware of that one where they said the highest amount of the use of the word shit on a TV episode. The program in
Yeah,
question is MA, which is 17 plus, so there's kind of no filter from there. But at the same time, if it's 17 plus, I think you can pretty much show almost anything because it's the equivalent of an R rating.
well, if it's 17 plus, well, yeah, if it's the highest one there is, you might as well just say NC-17. Yeah, R rating. I mean, yeah, but I remember that episode. I think it was released in 2002, and of course, as it's over here in Britain, it's like, wait, you're getting like surprised that like, or I'm shocked that a TV search because the way Cartman at the beginning goes, my God, on insert TV show here tonight, they are gonna say shit. It's like, what? We've been on Britain. We've been saying shit on TV for the last God knows how many years. I mean, in the '90s, I grew up watching Bottom, and yeah, that was very liberal with the use of the word shit. They didn't say fuck, but and of course, I didn't say cunt. But I don't know if the BBFC really, sorry, the BBC, going to get those two mixed up quite a lot. Really allowed. Well, seriously, I mean, it's so similar words and everything. And funny enough, it's amazing that the BBFC are actually the older organization. They just don't tend to think like that. But yeah, the BBC didn't allow I don't think allowed the use of the word fuck. I don't think they didn't use cunt. Even Channel 4 didn't use cunt, but I don't know if they're allowed to. Obviously, they are now. But yeah, but you know, I used to have shit quite a lot, and even in the '80s, Young Ones and Blackadder, at least, well, I had one episode that said it, and so it did really sort of give the idea that the difference in American and British ideas about violence versus bad language or sex, because you'd see TV series like Buffy or Angel and 24 and X Files, and they would have quite a lot of violence. I mean, 24 is fucking unbelievably violent. It is, as I've described it, R-rated violence with, frankly, PG, not PG-13, PG-rated language.
Nope, you're absolutely correct. I do find it unusual that with such violence and mature themes that are going on, because I think one or two episodes deal with maybe like sexual assault or may imply incest or something or child abuse, but yet you can't say the F word. You can't show tits.
Or shit.
I mean, what on earth is going on here is what I'm essentially thinking. If it's for a mature audience, you don't really have to put so much filters onto it. We're not to be rude, we're not Saudi Arabia and we're not China. I think America knows what's acceptable and what isn't. But
yeah, or 17th century Salem, or Cromwellian Britain. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like they say it's like ironic because you would go to Germany, yeah, the sex and the bad language would just be very blasé, and they would just not give a shit about it. But they really do clamp down on violence in that country.
Oh no, they do on all fronts: TV, film, and video games. Video games especially.
I mean, yeah, in that country, The Dark Knight. I know we're not talking about films, but I'll say it anyway. That did get a 15 rating, as I did in Sweden and Ireland, I think. But so
like a 16 age restriction by the FSK
on Dark Knight.
Yeah.
What you meant?
The German equivalent of 15 is 16.
All right, I was well, okay, that does stand to reason. Is it though? Because I always went weird how you use 16 because you got 12 at one end and 18 at the other. It's like, well, you're 15. You're halfway between those two numbers. But 16 is like 4 years one way, 2 years other. Anyway, let's not get off on a tangent. But yeah, I mean, like I say, Germany will clamp down on violence. I think Sweden will as well. They really put the stop sign up on that. But of course, yeah, when it comes to the bad language and the sex and nudity and everything, they just don't give a shit.
No, you're absolutely right. You could probably even watch, I believe, Germany is one of the few countries I'm at least aware of, and probably the Netherlands, where you could show softcore or even hardcore pornography after a certain time of the day. They don't really have those sort of hang-ups like us puritanical people in the UK and even more puritanical in the US have. Now, let me just remind you as well, in the UK, you are legally not allowed to show hardcore pornography on television, not even on paid TV services like TVX or Playboy UK or one of those. But I think in the US you probably can, but it has to be on some sort of pay filter. And HBO back in the day used to show sort of soft core titles. They don't do it anymore.
Well, I mean, I had heard of it. I remember when one time I was in Las Vegas back in '07. Me and my in my hotel we were in was just flicking through channels, and we came across some hardcore porn stuff, which ended up getting put on the bill, which my dad wasn't too happy about. But no, I mean, in terms of porn on TV over here, my best thing I ever had growing up was a Friday night on Channel 5.
That one I'm not too familiar with, but I know Channel 4 back in the day used to have the Red Triangle series where they would show a bit more sort of steamier type of films and whatnot, and they were warned, this is for the 18 plus crowd. It's usually sort of French and art house films subtitled, but definitely would pique people's curiosity because it would be, it's a bit saucy, love, the sort of thing that Daily Mail would have a bit of a tizzy over. But thinking about it, you were saying?
Well, there's always that sort of idea that because it's like a European film, it's got subtitles, it seems all artsy. So it's like, oh, it's art now. It's perfectly fine. It's like, if that's it's a bit of a level of snobbery in the attitude.
Well, I think it probably goes back to Britain's classist way about things. If it's artsy, then that means it's cultured, which equals upper class. Therefore, it's not likely to be as prone to censorship. If it was something resembling like Naked Attraction, which actually airs on 4, which I think is pornographic, they would deem that as filth because it's aimed at the lower classes or even middle classes like us lads. So, yeah, there's the weird schism that probably does not exist in Germany or Netherlands or France, where they tend to have a little bit more relaxed attitudes about certain things and whatnot. And America can be a bit of a country of extremes because, you can show stuff that's pretty mild and vanilla, like a lot of these sort of TV 14 shows, because on regular television like CBS, ABC, Fox, you can't show anything higher than a TV 14. But then you even look at some of the TVMA stuff, and they tend to be looking a little bit mild by comparison too. I'm honestly astounded. And then at the same time, you have stuff like Game of Thrones, very popular everywhere, including the US, and that's a very graphic show.
Yeah,
Spartacus, Blood and Sand. Yeah. Now, we'll say violence-wise, they did tone down or threaten to censor, I believe, The Masters of Horror, which was like a mini-series of sorts showing like hour-long episodes made by famous directors like John Carpenter and Joe Dante of Gremlins. They had to remove an episode off Showtime, which is a pay service station. It's not cable or satellite or analog, terrestrial, because it was too violent. I think it was called Imprint was the episode. It was done by Mike Takashi, who's Japanese filmmaker, done Audition. And they deemed that way too violent, which in question there's scenes of aborted fetuses and a woman being pricked with needles across her body and mutilated altogether. It's disturbing and graphic, but it managed to air on Bravo uncut, and it's an 18 certificate, no cuts on TV in the UK. How weird is that?
It is kind of weird, but then again, the American TV attitudes and American cinema have always been quite at odds with each other, because there's always that. Because I mean, the cinema in America, like is all protected by that First Amendment and everything. And I think maybe the TV is, but they've got that FCC, which just seems to hold the non-cable TV in such absolute vice-like clutches. I mean, that's why you just as I mentioned, like they've got the R-rated violence, but the PG-rated language, even The Walking Dead, which is R to NC-17 level of violence in some places, only goes into PG-13 with a language. They say shit and dick, which they, as opposed to just regular piss, crap, and bastard. So far, in the most recent series, I've heard one F-bomb, which is like, nice to know you're pushing the boundaries a little bit, but considering what the freaking comic is like, have you read the Walking Dead comic?
I haven't seen either the show or the comic series, I'm afraid. I'm not really a big fan of it. I find it a little overrated, but that's just personal opinion. But you were saying?
No, I mean, with Walking Dead, I mean, it did start off pretty cool, but it has gone on way too long. And much like Game of Thrones, the quality has just dropped big time. But yeah, it should have been HBO because I've always felt within when I see the HBO logo on an American TV series, that's usually to me always did guarantee that I'm going to probably get a bit of better quality because they do take the gloves off. The dialogue doesn't speak to you like you're a child or anything. They will let you, gosh darn, hear some naughty language, like, how actual human beings talk. They won't just, when they actually want to get angry, they're not just going to say like the mildest of swears, like, again, piss, crap, and bastard. They'll actually go into words like fuck and cock and gosh darn it, even cunt, which a lot of British TV shows don't actually do, to be honest.
Well, I actually notice a lot of the HBO stuff, like you said, really pushes the envelope in terms of profanity. Sopranos comes to mind particularly.
A Wire.
Lots sort of liberal uses of the C word, especially because it's more offensive because they use it misogynistic. It's always targeted at the woman, and then they also use ethnic and racial slurs like the N word or, pardon the French, wop, kike, other slurs, and then fuck obviously is highly frequent.
Yeah. Well, I haven't watched.
Hopefully, I don't demonetize. What?
Oh, I haven't watched The Sopranos much, but I have watched quite a bit of The Wire. Have you watched The Wire?
I've seen a few episodes. I know it's a very popular show. My aunt loves it. Set in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah, and it is. Well, you only have to watch an episode or two just to see how just an absolute string and slew of non-stop profanity. I mean, they're probably very realistically done. It's done in Mary City, just a bunch of grizzled cops against like hardened inner city youth and everything who do just speak like that. I mean, they just throw the F word around like it's an exclamation mark. And I've once or twice heard the word cunt mentioned, but they probably don't use it. But again, they've probably done a bit misogynistically because in America that is quite a misogynistic term, whereas in Britain it's not. So that's probably why we use it a bit more flippantly.
Well, it's a bit more flexible, the UK use of that word. I've heard, a lot of Nick Love movies use that word quite freely, like Football Factory and The Business and Outlaw. They all...
Oh, yeah, The Business.
I love Nick Love's movies. They're all so louty and geezy. I've knew a few people who are Millwall supporters who like those. And, us Brits, we like to use that word, the most offensive in the English language.
Oh, hell yeah.
Gender neutral is at best. It's kind of like, I don't know, what's a word that, fanny. Well, it certainly means something a lot ruder back in Blighty, but if you try using it in America, they just mean someone's ass or
Well, if you want to say it, I mean, think of what we call cigarettes in Britain.
Oh, yeah. I would be more than happy to say it, but I might get demonetized for homophobia, so... Yes.
Well, I'm not suggesting you say it. It's more about demonetization.
My stuff inevitably gets demonetized. I'd say some pretty offensive stuff, but yes, anyone who is curious is watching it outside of the UK. It's fag. Yeah, I smoke a fag, but it could be interpreted as a slur for LGBT. But we don't mean it with such malice. But I do know there is that sort of confusion amongst viewers who might be watching. Confusion-wise, it even brings back to... I know you were saying earlier on about certain languages that are used on British television, because when I grew up, like you said on Channel 4, I never really heard the C word being used, but I've heard everything else being used. which goes back to the thick of it, the Malcolm Tucker show before Peter Capaldi became on Doctor Who. He got flack by BBC Compliance Department before Ofcom took over. Ofcom is like the TV BBFC because you couldn't say too many uses of the C word, which in turn meant that the TV series, which is essentially Yes Minister with more strong language, got an 18 on DVD.
Yeah, well, the BBFC will still basically limit the use of the C word at 15. It's the only swear word they will limit at that rating. And they used to limit fuck at 15, but then they just didn't.
I noticed that too. A lot of the early titles, they would always say strong language, coarse language on the consumer advice on the VHS box. Now it's not an issue. You can even say the C word like 2 or 3 times, like last night on Soho, and you still won't get flagged on consumer advice.
I think they're more concerned about violence, but certainly back in those days, Channel 4, I think it was mostly have been more liberal about the use of bad language and other sort of adult material than the BBC was. I used to remember when I was a kid and on BBC 1 or 2, they would air what Americans would call an R-rated film. They do a 15 or 18 rated film. Like 2 best examples I can think of are Terminator and Under Siege, and all just they cut so much out, all the effing and all the actual on-screen violence and everything. I don't think Under Siege they cut out the nudity, but every last episode where fuck was cut out, and oh god, ITV were the absolute worst. They pretty much just made it so they made it probably PG rated. We may as well air it in prime time. Did we talk about this last time?
Yes, we have heard about it in the context of Terminator, and I think maybe RoboCop or one of those titles. But yes, ITV has a tendency to censor a lot of stuff on their programs, even though they don't necessarily need to at the time it is airing. They even still did it with some 12A and PG titles in question, like Spider-Man 1 and 2 and Skyfall and Spectre. When they aired on ITV, they had to remove certain scenes and whatnot in question that they deemed could be offensive to Tories or parents of small children, even though there's nothing family-friendly about Spectre or Skyfall. It could be a little different with Spider-Man, because Spider-Man, superheroes, children love them, but
I don't know. James Bond has always gone to aired into these sort of family-friendly action film, but these new Daniel Craig's did push the boundary a bit. I do remember I was watching Skyfall at home when they aired it, and I realized they cut out the one bit where the Judi Dench does drop her F-bomb, which I remember I saw at cinema like, wow, the first ever F-bomb in a freaking James Bond film, and the posh granny says it.
Yeah, you don't see that very often. That bit caught me by surprise too, as well as the scene. Oh no, we're getting off topic, aren't we? Well, I'll say it. Where the Javier Bardem villain, starts touching and flirting with James Bond in a way that could appear as if it was queer baiting, or some sort of homophobic idea that the villain is gay, therefore he's a menace. Some people didn't like that, especially in more conservative parts of the world. I don't know.
I remember him saying to Bond, like, first time for everything or something like that, and Bond just goes, "What makes you think it's my first time?" It's like, I did like how they went with that. It's like, okay, Bond's being a bit more progressive and everything by not being homophobic or anything in that case. But again, we are going off topic. But yeah, because we're really talking about how we're back on time. Right?
Well, we're talking about Channel 4 and its policy on censorship. They don't really say the C word on a lot of their programs. I mean, now they do. They're a little bit more flexible with stuff like Free Agents. And I think The In-Betweeners had 1 or 2 episodes that pushed the envelope. The In-Betweeners actually is an 18 on DVD, even though it's very much a 15, and the movies were 15, but they had to be cut and removed for certain scenes and whatnot. But the show that always comes to mind when I think Channel 4, because they're the most outrageous of all the TV stations in the UK, is Brass Eye. You familiar with that show?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Brass Eye. I've
It's
yeah, I've
very shocking, that one about the child molesters.
the pedos. Yeah, that's the most famous one. I remember when it was oh god, I remember it was aired and everything, and sorry, I'll start again. Just I'm starting to trip over my words, but the tabloids and the Daily Mail, as you know, they want to do, had an absolute tizzy about it. Nick is in a twist, bro. Uh, just screaming blue murder about how he's making fun of pedos. And I think it was a Daily Mail, the Express, the exact same day, like had an article about, I think it was Princess Beatrice or one of the other princesses at the time being, who was quote unquote coming of age and had a picture of her in her bikini. And also another one was talking about how Charlotte Church had now become legal and everything. It's like, wow, hypocrisy and irony is just fucking lost on these people.
No, you're absolutely right. We have an unfortunate way of sexualizing everything on British media, even if we are puritanical compared to our European neighbours. Page 3 comes into mind. You turn on the page, you see boobs and whatnot. You think, oh god, or they refer to look all these hot girls instead of, That's why I never if I'm meeting women, I never use the word girl because that's a bit offensive and it implies you have pedophiliac ideas. So are you refer to woman? If you're over 18, you're a woman. If you're under 18, you are. Well, if you're 13 to 18, you're an adolescent. If you're under 12 or 13, you're still a girl, according to the eyes of the law. But yeah, that episode in question definitely is very shocking. I actually refused, kind of like Elfin Lead, to actually even see it until years later, when all the fuss sort of dialed down, and someone showed me at their house, and I saw, okay, this is what all the fuss was about. Yeah, that was really shocking. I don't think I could watch that particular episode again, even though I love Brass Eye so much. I actually like that episode where David Amos, who unfortunately was assassinated by a weirdo last year, is duped into thinking that there's a fake drug called cake that's destroying Britain.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of the time, the whole point of it was just to take the piss out of all those tabloid media fear-mongering scare stories and everything, and how they would just sensationalize all these frankly sometimes quite imaginary just incidents and everything, mostly to drum up sales and everything, or just basically the sensationalism and fear-mongering in the media, which of course, I mean, drugs and pedophiles are two of the biggest ones there are. I know there are other episodes of Brass Eye, but those are two ones I really remember, to be honest.
No, you're actually right. No one remembers all the other ones, like the one on crime or cultural decline, but they always remember about the child molester one or the one about drugs. My favorite one is the one about drugs, and then there's one about sex, which shows a bunch of sailors getting into some sort of gay orgy or something, and the captain reprimands them for it, but actually engages in the erotic affairs himself. It's a really bizarre show indeed, and you kind of have to have a strong stomach for a lot of Chris Morris's work. And I say this even about Four Lions. I don't view him as a comedian as more as he is a provocateur. Kind of like Sacha Baron Cohen, who has already had battles with censorship boards throughout the world, including with Ali G, and then just recently with Who Is America, which they threatened to ban or sent to litigation because it's shown Sarah Palin in an unflavoring light, or Dick Cheney being duped into thinking, hey, torture is very good. You know how he is, putting his disguises and whatnot.
Oh, totally. Yeah, well, the thing is, though, he's like, all he's doing is just shedding some light on what's really going on, and just the absolute dickheads who are running stuff of this. I mean, you can't really, he's not one of the fault with everything. All he's doing is just helping us see look at our society with the don't know, with the goggles off, with the filter off. I mean, I don't know how the best correct term is to
Open the window of what's really wrong with the world, but doing it in a way where people can actually laugh at it. If he was doing a Michael Moore sort of thing, or like a serious journalist like Jeremy Paxman, I think people would switch off because they would say, "Oh, it's biased. Oh, it's offensive to my ideas."
Yeah, and too preachy. And I don't know. I mean, this isn't. I don't think this is really up to regard to what TV here. I mean, we may have mentioned it last time around. We were talking about animation. Have you watched Monkey Dust?
Yes, we've talked about it on the last podcast, and that was a pretty shocker program. Actually, no one filed Ofcom or ITC complaints against that show.
Yeah. Anyway, I bring that one up because as I was talking about the Chris Morris and the brass eye and the paedophilia hysteria back then, of course, do you remember one character from Monkey Dust, the pedo finder general?
Yes. Yes, he would always pop out of nowhere and start condemning those who he thinks are a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, even though there's like completely and utterly just not pedophiles, he's just going on the most tenuous now. What the fuck?
I mean, he could misinterpret something that seems innocent, like a baby is born, and a baby has no clothes on. He sees, uh-oh, you will be condemned to the gates of hell for the crimes against paedophilia.
Yeah. Did you want to give your daughter a 69? A 99, as in the ice cream with the flake. A 99, like a 69, but 30 worse. And he was silent by the power invested in me, by the hysterical, uneducated masses. It's like, yeah, obviously it's just a huge rip on just, well, what, in the early 2000s, the term millennium, just the tabloid-inspired anti-pedophile hysteria. I suppose you could say now, in light of the Jimmy Savile revelations and everything else, and the likes of Jeffrey Epstein, and even, and I don't say this slightly,
Rolf Harris.
Thicker, but Rolf Harris, but I was going to say Ian Watkins of Lost Prophets.
Oh no, don't. Unfortunately, I knew someone who was a big fan of that band and even helped out do some of the choreography for a music video of theirs. And when word got out that he was a nonce, that really upset her. So, yeah.
I'm not fucking surprised, but you could say that in light of all those revelations, maybe the hysteria wasn't unearned and everything, because you think, how much do you freaking know someone? Just what goes on behind those doors. But again, you can't just make people. Again, people are just innocent until proven guilty. But reflecting on it 20 years later, with what it makes you really, really view it in a new light. But considering Daily Bale pissy fit about something, your natural instinct is to roll my eyes and think, oh yeah, this is just your attempt to try to bring back hanging.
Well, there are some people, particularly on the far right, UKIP edge of things, that do want to bring back some of the older ways of what we would call capital punishment, corporal punishment. It's still legal, weirdly enough, in many parts of the US, but I think that I would say one of the few taboos we have in society is not suicide, it's not drugs, it's probably a combination of sexual harassment, child sexual abuse, and physical abuse, and terrorism. And Chris Morris has a funny way of exploiting all of those issues, and to some extent, Sacha Baron Cohen. And he does it with so much style that you have to wonder, can I be prosecuted just simply for watching this? So that's why, with stuff like that, and even to some extent with Borat, I almost feel like I have to watch it in a closed setting so no one knows what I'm watching, fearing that the Met will come knocking at my door, arrest me, make me read all the rules and regulation codes of Ofcom, and then beat the shit out of me, bugger me, like Abu Ghraib, and then drop me in the Thames, just like they've done old prisoners.
I do worry.
I've got paranoia to the core. I even felt that way about Elfin Lead. I feel that way about Four Lines. I feel that way about Irreversible or Human Centipede 2, which I have seen in its uncut version, and I will not talk about that because we're going to get onto our next topic about which in turn lends itself to children's programming, which is always a victim of censorship, regardless, be it live action or animated works.
I've got something definitely to say about children's animation on TV being censored. That's for sure.
Oh yes, well, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh are just a few good examples of that, and I believe like Ren and Stimpy and whatnot. But yes, if you want to add your thoughts.
Well, have you ever seen the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, the one from the late 80s, early 90s?
I'm afraid not, mate. I was more of a Rugrats, Dexter's Lab sort of person. But you're more than welcome to add your thoughts.
Right, it may have been a bit before your time, nonetheless. I think I grew up watching it, but due to the rules and regulations over here, not only did the BBFC's rules on nunchucks and the shuriken end for some reason enter the TV world as well. So Michelangelo's nunchucks had to be completely omitted from the show when broadcast over here. Margaret Thatcher's government at the time being had a shit fit about the content of ninjas being in things aimed at children. So the entire show had to be completely rebranded Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, which completely just changed what the show was all about. Not to mention, because like nunchucks couldn't be shown, they had to completely edit around any shot of Michelangelo's signature weapon, which includes the actual intro cinematic or intro theme. There's even a line which is meant to go, Splinter taught them to be ninja teens, had to be changed to Splinter taught them to be fighting teens. And it's just, I don't know, I mean, just looking back at it, it's kind of annoying because that's like my favorite cartoon growing up, but now it's just, my whole childhood was a lie. Not only they could not show the nunchucks, they couldn't mention them. And although the film got allowed to be called Ninja Turtles, they never cut out all the nunchucks. And I suppose actually, look, that's about it. But it is just one of the worst examples of like censorship that's just happened in our in this country. And it's just really embarrassing. It makes you feel embarrassed to be British because that something so bloody stupid could just happen in this country.
I would totally agree with you on that regards. I know it was sort of a overreaction against imitable behavior. What will children copy in schools? Oh no! And also, she had to cower down to the Merry White House Festival of Light crowd in terms of BBFC policy and whatnot. So, which in turn meant that certain things could not be shown for fear of upsetting or potential prosecution, because you also had the Video Recordings Act and several other more conservative laws passed into play. I was a little bit aware of the policies that were enacted against a lot of sort of martial arts films and television. I know it may seem a little bit racist by design because it's an East Asian form of cultural combat, but I'm sure that probably in turn also affected records that were being sold by Wu-Tang Clan. Okay, I'm getting off topic here, but yes, Bruce Lee videos like Enter the Dragon and the Fist of Fury with the cheesy English language dubs and whatnot. So yeah, I get what you mean.
Well, yeah, and martial art movies did get absolutely battered by this. Just because they wanted to go for a BBFC and Furman just had a completely blanket ban on nunchucks. It's actually almost painful with you watch them now, and now that Furman's gone and those rules just no longer are in place, and it's just bloody hell. It's like something completely different.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that either. You probably should have headed to France or Canada or something. They didn't tamper with martial arts movies like the way the UK did. But they did give well, if you're thinking about it, What would they have thought about John Wick Chapter 1, 2, and 3 if had that come out 20 years ago? Now they're 15s. No one blinks an eye, but yeah, I'm sure he would have had a fucking field day over John Wick. Or the Raid.
He would have just basically stamped all 18s and all over John Wick. And I know John Wick 2 had to be cut for avoiding 18 due to suicide scene, but I mean, just the amount of all the shooting and killing. He'd just go 18 or heavy cuts for a 15. Especially how he reacted after Hungerford.
No, you're absolutely right. I think they even tampered with Matrix, which is quasi martial arts. It was inspired by stuff like Wuxia and Ghost in the Shell. They even took a headbutt, I think, for video release, which, the headbutt thing, it looks a bit silly by design, but, I don't understand it. It's not like watching Zidane at the 2006 World Cup butting someone with his head in the stomach and getting a red card and banned for future games. Wait, are you a football fan?
I'm not really much of a sports person myself. I mean, sure, I follow the sporting events sometimes, international events, but I don't really watch them or anything, so I can't say I'm not a sporty guy.
So I got off topic there, but just saying it for all you lads out there, because in my time in Britain, everyone is sort of divided upon based on who their team allegiance is. If I went to your area with a West Ham shirt or cap, I probably would get mugged.
Yeah, I know football allegiances, team allegiances in this country can be pretty mental and everything. I mean, God knows if it was like a cup final or everything, and if it was say against Man U versus Liverpool, well, if you walked into one pub wearing the other team's shirts, it would be bad. If, of course, you've seen the 51st state, you might know what I mean.
Yeah, I actually do know what you mean. Thanks. But yeah, it's a funny story in regards to the censorship of children's programming and television. I know they tampered. Well, I don't think people think The Simpsons is a family show, but it's sort of viewed as that in the UK because of its PG rating back in the days when it was on VHS. And Sky One and BBC would often remove a lot of the few bits of swearing that Simpsons had, and also bits of sexual innuendo and violence. I don't know if you picked up on it when you were watching Simpsons as a kid. I did.
Well, I've watched it a few times because I've watched it. I watched it when it was aired, like pre-prime time and post-prime time. You do start to see what wasn't cut out, and it's the same with Futurama and everything. Of course, it's only like 12 rated material, but if it's on at like say 10 o'clock in the morning, they're going to cut that stuff puts in a 12 material out, even if it's just a minus of sexual references. There's something else, Adam. But
well, they did. I'm not entirely sure where Sky One or BBC and Channel 4, or T4, which used to air Simpsons and Futurama. They probably still do. It's been a while. They've done a lot of tampering with some of the episodes, because when I was in my times in the States, I was a little bit shocked by some of the references. Particularly, there was one where there's a division between an area code, and one part of Springfield is divided against another. And Kent Brockman, who's the newscaster, says golden showers, which is slang for
having a
urinalia, which is a urine fetish. And then there's one episode where James Woods makes a cameo appearance, and he starts using curse words, and it's bleeped out, but they deem that a bit too much. And I think there was one episode, which weirdly enough is on Disney Plus, which involves hear me out on this, Homer getting high off medical cannabis, and that's pretty much the whole episode. Never aired on British television. I never saw it until like 7 years ago.
Well, it's on Disney Plus right now, or anything, but we were so behind the Simpsons anyway, because it didn't air in Britain on the terrestrial TV in Britain until like the end of 1996. So, by the time we got like in the ones that are post millennium, it was like I mean, I wasn't watching TV much by that point anyway. Of course, another TV. I mean, in terms of like TV series being aired pre and post Watershed, another one good example would be Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or just Buffy for short, as we
Oh
quite
yeah,
know it.
I remember they used to show it back in the day on like lower times on the hour. Same with Friends, or Scrubs. Those were like these 12, sometimes even 15 programs that would air on daytime. I'm not wasn't entirely sure who this was marketed to. In America, this is not really a big problem because most of these shows are usually aired as they were. TV 14. There's no sort of time restrictions on American television like there is in the UK. So sometimes you get some pretty
Well,
shocking stuff on daytime television, like Family Guy. Ooh.
yeah, it's always a bit strange. They always I was watching Broken Arrow once on American TV. They did, of course, it was on like in the prime time, but yeah, they did just censor it to crap because I just knew they were going to cut off swearing in
Well,
swearing because it was American TV. But I mean, on the subject of Buffy, they'd have like one episode that was on something like 6:30 and everything. They'd air it again on Friday or Saturday at something like 10 o'clock, and then I just watch both airings something, and sometimes there wouldn't be a lot changed, but other times there'd just be wow, they cut so much out. I mean, sometimes just a little bit of thing like there'd be a bit of swearing, obviously not too much swearing, because again it's an American TV show aired by Fox, so it'd just be like piss or bastard or something. But as the TV, especially as the show started to go on and in its various seasons, they started to push a boundary of what they could get away with, and they would just constantly up the amount of swearing and the amount of sex in it. That sometimes you would just watch like one episode that was like made for primetime TV, and it was just absolutely butchered, and you watch it again just later on the weekend after the Watershed. It's like Jesus Christ, it's like watching a totally different. It's like watching a totally different episode or everything. Just the amount of stuff I just had to be just had to be removed. You wonder why they bother showing it in the first place.
I guess to try to appeal to that teen audience that was probably coming out after school because they probably felt like, oh, if you're watching it after 10, you probably shouldn't. You probably should be asleep, before you go to school.
Obviously,
Or maybe that was probably the
target
logic.
audience.
But
Buffy's
well,
target audience when he was the teenage years. I remember when I was at school, it was like the most popular TV show, like everyone was talking about. So I guess so. But again, if it was like on after, yeah, you air it on the after Watershed on a weekend, well, we're going to stay up that late to watch it anyway, or you're just going to record it.
no, I kind of get what you mean. Well, a bit of a weird way about things, I suppose. British TV schedules and whatnot. I remember they even showed Jerry Springer on Living TV because we had Sky back in the day, and then prior to that we had like NTL or cable and wireless, and they would show essentially a reality TV show about broken people, like Jeremy Kyle swearing. There was a lot of bleeps and people showing their breasts. They had to blur that out, obviously, and that was on at like 11 a.m. in the day. And then we talked about King of the Hill, and there was an episode about foot fetishes, and they aired at like 2 in the day, and they didn't cut anything out, and that was a 12 on DVD. So I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Even though by virtue, because I used to watch a lot of Sky Box Office, I would always see like the first clips of something. They always put parental blocks on 12 and 15 stuff after 8 or 9 o'clock, and they put the block on the 18 stuff after 10 o'clock. So, yeah. So, if it was like a sort of show that was a 15 but would air like at 9 a.m. or 3 p.m. or something, I was always a little perplexed. I was always a bit cautious, especially my earlier years, about even going above it and watch it. Except when it came to Family Guy, when it first started on air, because he's shown Sky One in the mornings. but they butchered a lot of it. None of the sexual innuendos, the violence was toned down. And in Ghost Whisperer, I saw it mainly because I liked Jennifer Love Hewitt. I had a bit of a and they toned quite a bit of that down, even though it was a 15 and it aired like at 2 p.m. on Living TV.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just if it's not made for like prime time airing, I mean, there's no point showing it because the kind of stuff you're gonna freaking cut out is just gonna reduce the well, it's just gonna make it unwatchable. That's always mentioned like, on the last podcast when they completely bowdlerized RoboCop for TV, and of course, as my brother just once said, they might have just air it in prime time because there's nothing in it that would make it that would require it to be post watershed after they'd finished with it.
No, you're probably right in that regards. It goes back to a BBFC annual report that they did about RoboCop, thinking that it was a PG film with an 18 level content. Well, they got the PG movie that they wanted with all the butchering that they did. So I guess they fulfilled Furman and all the examiners' wishes by, seeing it as a PG film with 18 level material that they trimmed down to make it PG level. If you think about it. Sorry, I'm off on a tangent, but you get what I mean.
That's okay. Well, the first time I saw Die Hard was when it was recorded from ITV, and that was just heavily censored. I don't know if I mentioned it the last time around. I think it was like they left two F. They didn't cut everything out. They left two F-bombs in there, but the rest were just cut out. They didn't cut all the blood out, but again, just the vast majority of it. So when I watched it again another time, uncut on video, it was almost like I was watching a totally different film because I just realized, oh my god, there's so much in, like blood splatters and impact shots and just almost like countless other amounts of swearing. I mean, on the TV version, they even cut out the bit where he says "Yippee ki yay, motherfucker." They replaced it to "Yippee ki yay, Kimasabi." It's like, okay, that's kind of destroying John McClane's entire character, but fair enough. I guess censor's got a censor.
I guess they so indeed. Yeah, very weird policies, especially when they get like the TV or airplane cuts. Because when you sometimes go on a flight, like on Virgin Atlantic or BA or American Air, they would put the same sort of TV cuts for in-flight entertainment. That I'm perfectly okay with because you're showing it in a public setting. Why would you want to watch 50 Shades of Grey next to a 7-year-old who's flying with his parents to go on holiday to Miami? The only time that really works is when you're on board a flight. It does not work when you watch it in private settings. But at the same time, they would slip in stuff that I wonder what. I think on public access television in America called PBS, it's like the BBC, except you don't have to own a TV license. Thankfully, I hate the TV license. They even showed a disturbing rape scene from a costume drama called Forsyth Tharga. And I had Damian Lewis, and I was like, you can't show the swearing or the nudity, but you can show rape? Okay, I just thought they took this too far. And the Jamie Dornan show, The Fall, which he did before 50 Shades of Grey, they aired that, and they put in all the graphic sexual dialogue about his fetishes and killing women and painting their nails and murder scenes and references to rape, but they took out all the F words and blurred out the boobs. I was really angered by the censorship and the contradictory nature, because in my opinion, I think rape scenes and discussions about murder and sexual violence are more problematic than any F-bomb could ever be.
Oh, far more. I think that just goes without saying and everything, or at least it should go without saying. I mean, it sounds like what you've just described to me sounds like don't know. In Britain, there's a puritanical bent and everything, but I do think America it does seem to be greater. And by what you've just described to me, seems to be just seem to encapsulate that.
Because we have a tendency in the UK to be very strict on sexual violence as far as films is concerned. It's one of the few issues I'm aware of that can still get a film banned or censored. Not even violence can do that. So I do take that, and it's also one of the few issues that can still disturb me or put me off a show. I'm not. Don't make me talk about Elfin Lead. Don't make me talk about it. So you get.
I'm not going to make you talk about it. I don't. I still remember what you both told me about. Oh, that just sounded so wrong. I mean, I'm certainly not going to watch that show after what you described to me. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, there is like talking about sexual violence or and rape, and so it's surprising. I mean, I think it's like the case of Irreversible. They had a long, protracted rape scene that they passed it completely uncut. Obviously, the film does go a bit. From what I'm hearing, shows it more from the point of view of a victim and shows more the psychological traumatic elements of rape. But then they also sort of think because, again, as I brought up earlier, it was an artsy subtitled European film, which probably won't appeal to the quote unquote plebs, as they probably thinking. So they didn't feel any sniffing was needed.
Nope, you're absolutely right. Furman was definitely known for using these types of practices, and to see even Robin Duvall or Quentin Thomas, who I think was back in the day, implement those same measures, it reeks of classism at best. It's like Hollywood producers flagging movies that would depict gay relationships or romance between a white woman and a black man because they would think it would upset the middle America viewers who live in Peoria or Ohio or Florida. They would have a tizzy over it, and it would only appeal to New Yorkers and those fucking California goddamn liberal son of a bitches. Oh my god! Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, it's quite an accent right there, but yeah, you can always just hear again, there's always a level of elitism and snobbery in the what's made in the censorship. I mean, what was I to say?
Oh yeah.
When Furman banned, I know this is again getting off topic of TV, but when he banned Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he said he wouldn't want a factory worker in Manchester watching it. It's like, what a son of a bitch for saying that.
Oh well, that's a very obvious what he's implying, that us lower class working or even middle class people can't handle a bit of violence. Yeah, that screams classist discrimination. He might have to be fired according to the Met's report of discrimination that they passed through in 2018 on the I don't know who, the Lamry inquiry. I'm not so sure, but yeah. Well, unfortunately, it was a different time then. It was the 80s, and classism was rife. You know,
even
because I'm not from the 80s. I'm from the 90s, and a lot of that sort of closure of factories and stuff, and the snobbery of the Tory elite. That was a big thing back then. But that's getting a political conversation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but yeah, I mean, they always like give some sort of. They always try to give some sort of rationale behind what they do and everything, but again, just a bunch of snobbery. I mean, they tend to think, okay, well, the grown-ups can be treated, the upper class can all be treated like grown-ups and everything, but oh no, the lower classes they have to be treated like children. But
yeah, so I find it offensive. I mean,
yeah, same here.
Yeah, I find it offensive. You don't even have to be left wing like us. You can even be a Tory or UKIP supporter and still think that ain't right. Anyways,
well, they always claim to be against elites, those UKIP types. Anyways, so where's our outrage about this?
Well, many of them are former ex-Tories who voted for Thatcher because she was nationalistic enough, and she would sort out the whole Falklands thing or sort out them gay people or blacks and whatnot out. Let them know their place, right? I'm from Essex. They're trying to cause bother, you know, right? I don't want to be taught in my schools, innit? I should know. I grew up in Tory areas like Essex and Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire and obviously Kent, and it's full of them.
No, I'm from Gloucestershire. That's very much a very right-wing area. Again, getting off topic. I mean,
but yeah, actually, I'll reel it back in just for everyone out there. I will say, if you are interested in answering one of these two questions, what your experience with advertising? I know it's not BBFC related, but it is, because a lot of cinema adverts, they also used to air on television, and something about them, like the ads for Think or NSPCC that would air on telly, were always so disturbing, even airing up before Watershed or like charity appeal ads. What was your experience with them? And because they got a lot of complaints from Ofcom and ITC for disturbing the audience a lot.
well, I've seen. Well, there's well, the NSPCC ones are, from what I remember, or just any sort of anti-violence against children always used to unnerve me a little bit. But then again, I suppose that's by design. They're meant to sort of like pull at your heartstrings and everything. I don't know if I ever mentioned any of these sort of public safety adverts I used to watch growing up, like Stranger Danger, where they always say no, don't go, or another one about telling kids not to walk onto power lines or power plants and everything.
Children, don't take your chance of electricity. Or that one with the man dressed like the Grim Reaper, watching people being drowned in the water, saying, "I'll be back." Yeah, those are definitely a product of its time. But the reason why, often I ask, because a lot of these ads in question, BBFC wise, would always be rated 15, sometimes 18, even though they were no stronger than a PG or 15 type of work, but they would often receive quite high classifications. And then just in recent years, since 04, when they start allowing more ads to get PGs and 12As, money over 12A. And anytime I would be at the cinema and I'll see all these ads and stuff for like road safety, I would always feel like, oh shit, I'm gonna have a nightmare. I was always expecting the worst. Even the ads that were 12A or PG, sometimes even 15, that weren't about road safety, would sometimes irk me because I knew something was a little bit off about them. Even on television, when you're alone in a dark room late at night, probably watching something you probably shouldn't have been watching, like Brass Eye or Jam or Elfin Lead, but that's another story. You would feel a bit at edge.
Or something I recorded off Channel 5 on a Friday night, which I did quite a lot.
Oh, exactly. And they probably had some pretty wild stuff. I remember there used to be ads for safe sex or contraception. I certainly knew what it was, but there was one particular ad that was a little unsettling, and that made me creep me out even when I was watching it alone in the dark. And I was hearing weird noises and music, and it sounded a bit weird. It was for warning about gonorrhea and syphilis, and it showed like text on people's clothes or belts saying syphilis, gonorrhea, HIV, and the voiceover was unsettling and creepy. I didn't know quite what to make of it. They used to air it on MTV a lot in the day.
Oh, I didn't really have access to MTV at home and everything. We didn't have satellite TV or cable TV, which it would have been on. We did get digital TV later on, but had some sort of TV channels, or not music TV channels, but not actually MTV itself. But no, I'm not familiar with that particular public safety advert. I mean, another one I remember was always don't play with matches and everything. As for actual age ratings on adverts, I remember when I was in the early 2000s, I saw a Crime Stoppers advert, and it came in two versions: a U-rated one and an 18-rated one. The only difference I remember was that the 18-rated one had the word "fucking" in it. It's like, well, how the hell did that make it an 18? The 15 I could probably understand, but
Oh well, I know which one you're talking about because I wasn't old enough to see Kill Bill when it came out, but my father told me all about it, saying, "Oh, you got to have seen this ad. It was 18, and they say the F word, and it was like, well, you could say that in a 12A. What's the big deal?" But I guess because if ads or trailers come in unbidden context, no one's aware exactly when it will be coming. I guess that's the rationale for why the ratings are so higher for ads and trailers than they are for actual movies. But I get what you mean. Like that's a 15 ad. I don't think
I know.
you could.
I just did, but
An 18 ad to me would be like that one where you see Hitler fucking someone and it's warning about AIDS, or one where people were exploding to death to warn about climate change. But anyone who asks, the most disturbing TV ad I ever saw, or cinema ad, is probably the one for the Department of Transport Think, which involves a young woman being smashed by a car invisibly in a pub. And it has Mark Strong's voice saying, "It takes what you might think to become a drink driver." 12A. Yeah, nightmare fuel.
I remember that one.
They always would actually played it, weirdly enough, on a reel for National Treasure. I was at Easy Cinema back in the day, and it was, National Treasure's PG, but they played a 12A ad, which I didn't quite understand. And something about that was unusual.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, if you go to a cinema, they shouldn't be a show. I don't think they could show any sort of ad or trailer that was actually rated any higher than the film that you're watching. But that's not there.
Exactly.
But, no, I mean, yeah, a lot of those drink driving ads, they can be quite sobering. I wouldn't say they've ever actually sort of unnerved me or anything, but yeah, they can. Yeah, but you say they can really they can unsettle you. But again, it's by design. It's the whole point is to make you think and make you not want to go and do the thing that they're trying to tell you not to do.
Exactly. I think those, in my opinion, call me weird, they make better horror films than the horror films themselves that are being shown before the film. Why the hell would I want to see Conjuring or Exorcist or the It when I can watch a road safety ad from Think or Department for Transport or NSPCC and get my fear or my nightmares from that? Do they still put ratings on ads anymore, or is it only just for trailers?
What, at the cinema?
Yeah.
I don't think they actually put the ratings on, show ratings for the trailers either. They just simply say that the following trailers have been rated appropriately to the feature film or something like that. I can't remember exact sentences, but they say, yeah,
because Cineworld used to do the following trailers were rated appropriate for the feature that you're about to watch. Please turn off your phone. Thank you.
Oh yeah, they do that. Yeah, but they show an actual age rating for the actual trailers themselves or for the ads. I mean, you ask yourself, why would you need to? The film you're seeing has got a certain rating. That's all you need, really.
Yeah, I personally think that's. I'm nostalgic for when they used to put the certificates on the ads and trailers, like PG ad or U trailer for a 12 film. They should bring that back again. That was pretty awesome. I don't like going to the cinema nowadays because they got rid of all that. I was just curious if they brought it back since the pandemic, but I guess no. They
hang on, I'm just having another think. I think maybe have they? Maybe I've seen occasional ones. I mean, if it's a video game, they'll say what PEGI rating it is. So I mean, there's that going. Just trying to remember if I see BBFC age rating on any of the ads or trailers. Well, like, sir, how do you know? Because any sort of ones I remember are showing the older, the old logos, not these new ones post end of 2019.
Okay, I get what you mean. Well, I was just curious about that. That was all. I wish I had a time travel map to go back to 2005. That was a great year for cinema going, but unfortunately, when it was in '05, I couldn't see 18 films, so I kind of missed out. Unlike you got to see some pretty heavy titles then, but
I can't
that's
remember
another
what
story.
films came out. Sorry, what films came out in '05, and I don't remember seeing any 18 rated ones because the previous 2 years I saw both Kill Bills, and I saw Freddy versus Jason. And yeah, I think that's about it in terms of 18 rated films. I don't think I ever saw. I can't remember if I saw one in 2005.
Well, no need to worry too much because I was just out of curiosity. But I'm afraid we're probably going to have to end this one for the rest of the day. But it's been very nice having you, Mr. Bavister, talking about TV and ads and more hysterias. If you're watching Naked Attraction, please go ahead and watch this podcast as well. You'll certainly know why we are shocked as you are about why Channel 4 is such a piece of pornography. And it's the best channel in the UK, just in case anyone asks.
Yeah, I suppose. Is it? I suppose it is and everything. I do like watching the BBC because there's no adverts, but yeah.
Well, Channel 4 is a bit edgy, it's a bit dodgy at best. I prefer even over Netflix. Netflix, you can get away with even murder. They even show Love, Gaspar Noé's movie, and Nymphomaniac. They're pornographic, and they get to air on Netflix. How about that?
Yeah, how about that, indeed? All right, then. It was definitely nice speaking to you again.
But yes.
All right, then.
Well, I'll speak to you next time. I don't know what I'll be doing the next podcast due to a lot of business, but you take care now over in Cambria, Wales. And until then, Hubhuru or Tara.
Yes, I'll just say au revoir and cordial month.
Watch it. Take care now.